Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Today, we are talking about getting your foot in the door, how taking the first step can lead you down the path to your dream job. So first, we want to introduce ourselves today before we go ahead and get started. Let's move to that slide. All right, so I'm Kelly Williams. I'm the Outreach and Alumni Coordinator at LFCC, and I'm also an alum of LFCC. Today, I'll be able to share with you some of my personal experiences, as well as some advice on how to really get your foot in the door, that how-to piece of it.
My name is Taylor Luther. I'm the Career and Academic Advisor here at LFCC. So outside of just academic advising, I handle all of the career services. So I help students with any resume building skills, as well as helping with writing cover letters, interview tips if you're preparing for an interview, and then of course too, helping you figure out what kind of job you may want if you're not fully sure yet, just what job you're looking for or the career path that you want. So definitely help students with all of that.
I'm Eric Bittner. I'm an LCC alum, and after that, I'm also an alum at VCU, LCC first though. And then I'm currently the Planning and Zoning Administrator for the town of Middletown, which is right outside of LCC. And I'll just kind of be talking about my personal experiences at LCC and how they kind of helped me get to where I am now. So
let's take it away.
All right. Perfect. So our first slide that we have here is about why volunteering and internships are important. And down along the bottom, you can obviously see some of the many reasons of why they're important. Kelly, do you want to go ahead and start on some of those?
Sure. So when you're kind of thinking about your dream job, or even if it's not your dream job, just what's coming next for you, you want to think about the benefits of that and kind of how can you reach that goal, right? So if my goal is going to be becoming a zoning administrator for the town of Middletown, or just a zoning administrator, period, you want to be thinking about the skills, knowledge, and abilities that you need in order to get to that job. So Eric, of course, will be able to share more of his experiences later, but you can guarantee that he was looking at the jobs in his area, the skill sets that were needed for those jobs, the degrees, certificates, and other credentials, so the knowledge that he might need for those, as well as the individuals that might be there to mentor him and walk him through the process. Of course, along the way, he's going to need to practice. Practice makes perfect. He wasn't going to be ready for his dream job the minute he walked into LFCC or in his first volunteer experience, but that's what those volunteer experiences are for. It's to get you that practice little by little to build that skill set and kind of make a history of that skill set. Of course, along the way, you're going to need to say yes to lots of opportunities. You just have to be open to those. But it really is a process as you're thinking about that and thinking about the training that's going to get you there. Taylor, how would you get onto that?
Into the training, I'm sorry?
Oh, just why it's important and how it all fits
Why it's important. So obviously, when you look at the first of the two, volunteering, obviously volunteering is important always for your community and to help give back, but it actually can give you resources as well, because sometimes volunteering can look just as great as an internship would on your resume. So it definitely just helps to give you all the training that you may need, that you may not get from your classes or from what your current job may be, especially if your current job isn't within the same career field as your future job. So just volunteering places, even if you're not getting paid, can still give you tons of opportunities, tons of training. You can also a lot of times find a mentor when you're volunteering, and having a mentor is really key on helping you kind of, bridge that gap between finishing your education and then getting into the job world, because your mentor will know more about what it's like to have a job and be outside of college, and there's a lot that you learn during that time. So having a mentor can be really helpful for that. But overall, just volunteering itself can help train you in ways just like an internship would. And of course, if you can get an internship too, those are fantastic to get. A lot of times you may even need one while you're in college. We don't always need as many here at LFCC, but a lot of 4 years typically for their majors will need some type of internship. So you can also get internship experience while you're in school. But outside of that, it's great to always be looking for any type of volunteer or internship experience. It really just will elevate your resume compared to other candidates in the future.
All right, I think we're ready for next slide.
Okay.
All right, so now we're going to talk with you all about how to start volunteering and how to start interning. Of course, like Taylor and I've said, there are a lot of benefits to it and to like finding that dream job or getting yourself there and meeting that goal. But not everyone always knows where to start. And whether you're a student coming out of high school or having been homeschooled, or you're a student who was out in the workforce before, but you're trying to change into a different field, it can kind of feel a little daunting sometimes when you're, again, not sure where to start. But that's what we are here for. So what I want to do today is help you first identify opportunities and organizations that can help you reach that goal. So first, with opportunities that build the experience that you need, a lot of times you want to start looking at that dream job itself. So let's say you go onto LinkedIn, Monster, or Indeed, and you look up the dream job that you're looking for. So one that I looked up for you guys, just that a lot of students are interested in business, is an HR person at Target. This is someone who's one of the top team members, kind of what skill sets they would need. So if you're going to be one of the top HR persons at Target, I'm just going to pull those skills up. They want someone who has strong interpersonal and communication skills, strong business acumen, they're comfortable dealing with ambiguity, they can lead and hold others accountable, they have cognitive skills, problem solving, decision making, and also have financial and quantitative analysis. So when you see those kinds of skill sets listed on those jobs, you need to think to yourself, what opportunities are going to help me build those things? So just looking at LFCC, if you're thinking about, that leadership experience, maybe you want to join the SGA, the Student Government Association. That's going to be a great position where you're going to be working with college leaders, you're going to be working with your peers that you're going to be advocating for, you're going to be taking on new responsibilities. There will be lots of ambiguity as you're like organizing events and you're preparing for different things that are coming down the pike that would really begin to set you up well for a job like that in HR, believe it or not. And it is a first step, but it's a great first step to, again, build that history. When they're talking about that financial and quantitative analysis, that is your math classes, the business acumen you can gain through a business degree at LFCC, and maybe something more specialized like HR at your university if you transfer, which you don't have to transfer, but that's just something to think about. And maybe as you're thinking about working with people and in those situations, maybe you want to take on a part-time job or a volunteer role where you're doing customer service. And that's just one example of how you would kind of look at those jobs and look at the KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities, to find opportunities here that would work for you to build that. Always be willing to say yes to new opportunities because there might be something that's a little bit out of your comfort zone, but it might be the thing that pushes you along to, again, further that history that you have there and those skills that you build. Keep in mind, again, that these don't always have to be jobs, although jobs are great. They're wonderful for your resume. You can also, as Taylor will show later, put on your resume volunteer experiences that can really showcase how you've built that over time. So next, let's think about organizations that make those connections for you. You first want to begin researching organizations in your field. Let's say you want to go into healthcare, and maybe you're not entirely sure yet what you want to do. Maybe you want to be a nurse, maybe you want to be a doctor, maybe you want to be behind the scenes and do health information management, but you're not 100% sure. You're going to want to start looking at organizations that maybe have a variety. The one that comes to mind for me is an organization called Our Health in Winchester, and I'm just choosing Winchester because I'm a little more familiar with it. But for those of you in Luray, Shenandoah, Fauquier, maybe there's an organization near you that does something similar. But Our Health is very well connected to other partner agencies in our area, like free clinics, dental clinics, healthy families, that can really get you a lot of volunteer experiences and show you how it's all interconnected within our community. Because again, that connection to those organizations nearby is just going to further your network that you are going to build. You also might want to consider their mission and purpose and how it really relates to you and how you feel that you identify with it. So with Our Health, talking about like community vitality, if that's something really important to you and speaks to you, that could be a really great sign to you that it would be a good fit. I also want to suggest that you kind of like map out their location of activities, because again, if Our Health just seems like the perfect organization for you, but maybe you're living in Clark County or Fauquier and driving there to do those volunteer activities would be difficult, you again might want to consider something closer to home. Another reason to consider location is that you might want to think about the networks you want to build. So if one day you want to work in Northern Virginia, but you're living in Shenandoah County, maybe you want to find some organizations in Northern Virginia so that you can begin building your networks there. Next slide. All right, so next, mentors who guide you. Just like Taylor said, this is absolutely huge. This is someone who's going to be influential to you as you're kind of navigating this process all the way, someone who's been there and done that. Maybe not all of it, because of course everyone has their individual skill sets and we're all growing in our own way within our industries, but someone who again can guide you and give you some advice. So here's some qualities that you want to look for in a mentor who can guide you through that process. First, you want someone who has experience in the field. That's of course going to be key. They might have experience in other fields, but if, for example, you wanted to be a park ranger one day, maybe you want someone who's been a ranger or someone who works in a nonprofit that's kind of affiliated with that park. You want someone who can share industry insight with you. So maybe they have seen some things coming down the pike. They've seen things change and grow over time. That's very valuable. Someone who really understands your passion and someone who really wants to grow you in the direction that you're wanting to grow. You know, there could be people out there that you may look to and think, wow, they're so high up, they have this status, they're amazing, right? And there are lots of different levels of individuals that are out there in their field. But again, just look for someone who, regardless of where they're at and they're standing today, maybe was where you were before, was a student before, or, you know, was starting in the same position that you were, that can really kind of see themselves in you and vice versa. Someone who also has the leadership skills that you desire. So if you, for example, say, I want someone who's maybe a strong woman leader, or someone who is an ethical leader, or someone who just loves their team and knows how to bring people together. Be thinking about what you want to have as a leader yourself. See that in a potential mentor and use that as an opportunity to grow. But also, and Taylor brought this up at one point when we were talking about this, someone who is like you but not like you. So maybe they have some leadership skills that you haven't really thought of before, or that maybe you think, ooh, that's out of my comfort zone. That is someone you want to look up to as well, because they're going to grow you and make you more well-rounded. Finally, someone who has strong networks is really important because, again, just like the organizations in your area, you want a person who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. They might be able to help you find employment through that. They might be able to connect you to additional mentors who can grow you and give you more advice and experience, or somebody who can give you another volunteer task that you can add to your resume. There are so many benefits to having that mentor. And again, you don't have to have one, you can have several. It's just looking to those individuals who can help guide you through that path.
Just to kind of add into what Kelly was saying, definitely on the networks, not only should you find a mentor who has a good network and get you those connections, but you should still, as you're trying to volunteer, intern, or just be a part of your community in general, to always be making sure that you are building those connections, because once you get into the job world, it may even blow some people's minds sometimes just how important those connections are, and how just knowing someone at a company that you may be interested in working at, that can really get your foot in the door to get the interview and get the job. Versus not knowing anyone and just kind of, you know, blindly putting your application out there. So always trying to find that connection, that network can help you in ways that you would never even think of, and open more doors for you.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that, Taylor. Just today is actually, I think it was this morning, I was looking on LinkedIn and they said 85% of jobs are filled through networking, which is crazy to think about. So glad you said that. Absolutely. Okay, last, here's how you're going to make it happen. So we've already talked about organizations, opportunities, and mentors, but maybe you're thinking, I'm not really sure how to make this connection with this person. What do I even say? I'm here today to kind of help you walk through that, and I'll give you an example of something that a student might say in a certain situation. So the first thing that you want to do, whether you're calling this individual or this organization, you're emailing, or you're walking up to their table at a booth, is you want to introduce yourself. So that's going to be your name. And it's going to be some things about yourself. Of course, right now you're a student. Typically, people are interested not necessarily in titles, but just kind of where you're at right now in life. So, you know, I'm Kelly Williams. I'm the Outreach Alumni Coordinator, right? Then you're going to give a little bit of an elevator speech about yourself. So for those of you who may not be familiar, an elevator speech is referring to that moment where maybe you walk into the elevator and you see the executive of the company is right there with you in the elevator. They're that person you've been wanting to talk to all along, and you only have from ground floor to floor 5 to talk to this person. So that means it's going to be a very brief, succinct little tidbit about yourself, what your goals are, and how you see yourself working with them. So that again is going to include your goals, what you know about that person or that organization, how you'd be a great fit for what they might be looking for, what you enjoy doing, and how you can contribute. A lot of these can kind of cross over, so you don't have necessarily separate sections or chunks in that elevator speech. It's just kind of including those elements. So, and Taylor did mention as well, and I love this when she says this, be sure not to make it all about you, and what you want. Make it about how what you want can fit into what they need and how you can contribute to them. So I'm going to give you an example of this. Let's say you're walking down the hallway and you see on the bulletin board an advertisement for the Northern Virginia 4-H Center, and they are looking for either camp counselors or camp staff for the summer. You know you want to be a teacher, you know you need experience with kids, you love kids. This is the perfect fun opportunity to spend your summer doing something like a part-time job, a seasonal job, to get that experience on your resume. So you decide it's time to email them. You're going to fill out the application, but you just want to, kind of get your foot in the door and say hello. You could say something like this: hey, my name's Alex. I saw that there was a poster on the bulletin board in the Student Union building. I'm really excited to hear that you're looking for summer staff at the Northern Virginia 4-H Center. I really love working with kids. I even want to be a teacher one day, and I feel like this could be a good opportunity for me to build experience. I also really feel like my past experience with kids, my experience at summer camp could really help me give your kids an awesome experience this year. I'm going to go ahead and fill out the application, but I just wanted to touch base with you. That employer, that leader is going to be so happy that you're just as excited about their mission as they are. And they're going to see something about you, that initiative that you took, and your passions and your goals and where they lie, and see you as a potential mentee as well. So again, whether that's just a quick email for a position that's already out there, or maybe something that doesn't exist yet, that's a great way to get started. So when I say something that doesn't exist yet, just to give you guys an idea, maybe there's an organization out there, they don't have volunteer or paid positions posted, but you really want to work with them. You could give a similar kind of elevator speech to say, hey, I've been researching you a lot. I would love to help you. What do you need? They will really appreciate that a lot. So let's say you've made that initial connection and now it's time either for an interview or a meeting, and you want to kind of, again, make another impression and kind of get your foot in the door a little bit further. If you're going to be attending a volunteer meeting, you're going to want to come, to something that maybe is local to you or is virtual, and you want to commit to doing one task. That's really important. So again, it's going to show further initiative. Okay, this person is brand new, but they want to help. That really says a lot to that future employer or that, current volunteer organization about your commitment to them, even if it's just little. You do not have to do something huge for them. You can make it simple, you can make it easy, but again, just that one thing. So maybe if it's an event planning committee, you're volunteering to bring the snacks, or you're volunteering to make the map, or help in the parking lot or something, just one thing. Over time, you can kind of commit to taking on more responsibility as you feel more comfortable with the organization, as you feel more comfortable with yourself and your ability to contribute. And again, that's going to show even more initiative. It's going to get you even more connected. It's going to build trust. And then over time, hopefully, that's going to lead to even more opportunity. Because again, these organizations that are connected to other organizations, somebody else might say, ooh, Eric is really good at that Excel spreadsheet. Maybe we need him on our team for this too. I mean, it really can happen, and you'll be surprised at the results.
Okay, awesome. So now that you may have gotten your foot in the door and you've been volunteering somewhere, you've been interning, and now you're ready to start going for that future job, where should you place that in a resume? And I know a lot of times people do have some issues with figuring out where to put it because they may view it as not professional, where in reality it actually is professional and should be on your resume at some point. So I'm just going to go through the 3 different types of resumes real quick and say where you put them in each type. So a chronological resume is your average resume that you see. It just shows, your skills and abilities. It shows your education, then your work experience in chronological order. And then again, at the end, you can put achievements or anything like that. So typically in a chronological resume, you would add a volunteer/internship section after your work experience section. So you definitely don't want to put it above it because your work experience, if you have any outside of volunteering and interning, would definitely want to come first. But then you can put that volunteer internship section in there, and you can make it look just like your chronological work experience looks, with the name of the company or the organization that you worked with, as well as maybe if you had a volunteer or intern title and whatever that may have been, or it could just simply be volunteer or intern, and put the dates of when you did it, and then you can put a few bullet points in there about what you did. So that would be the easiest one, the chronological, to add it in there. For a functional resume looks a lot like a chronological resume if you don't know what a functional looks like. The biggest part of the functional is that typically this is for people if you have any large gaps between your jobs. A lot of times this can happen while you're in college. You may work a part-time job and then figure out, you know what, I need to focus on my studies and take a year off from working so I can finish, you know, my education and then get back into the job force. And so sometimes it may look kind of like you have large gaps in your employment, which can sometimes show as a red flag to people. But if you have a functional resume, you typically try to fill in the gaps wherever you can with more information, whether it's about being in school or anything like that. So typically, if you are during your time in college or whatever it may be that you may be taking a gap from, or some time away from, to fill that gap, if you are volunteering specifically anywhere, then you can put that volunteer experience into your work experience, because even if you're not getting paid, it is still something that you were doing during that time, and you were learning these skills that can be put towards this future job. So that's where you kind of want to put it in the functional. So instead of it being its own section outside of work, you could use it to fill any of those gaps that you may have. And then the last would be transferable. This is probably the least used resume, I would say, but I still wanted to put it in there. A transferable resume looks a lot different than normal resumes. It's not going to have each set work experience with dates and titles and things like that. Instead, it's actually just a list of basically, professional skills. And you would just have a lot of bullet points that take what you've done, whether it's in school, in volunteering, in interning, whatever it may be. You take that experience and then you put each sentence saying how what you learned there transfers into this professional skill for this specific job. A lot of times this is more so for people who have never had a job before ever. So you're just kind of getting into the game, and it could even be, you're straight out of high school and you volunteered with some different organizations within your high school, and maybe you played on a sports team and you learned some leadership skills from that or teamwork skills. And you can just take that experience and say, I did this with this, and these are the skills that I learned from it. So again, you would just take anything that you did from your volunteering and put it into those bullet points and to show that what you learned can transfer into this. So those would be basically the three ways that you could make it go into your resume and to look professional. And then I definitely want to give some good tips with that. And the first thing would be about when adding it. I know a lot of people are afraid to because they feel like it doesn't matter, but it definitely does. You do still want to be a little selective. You only want to add the volunteer experience if it has anything to do with the job that you're applying for. But when I say that, it doesn't mean, okay, just discredit, say you're, say you want to work with 4-H, or you want to be a park ranger and you're going for a park ranger job. But anything that you've done prior was working in like hospital settings. So maybe you just volunteered through the volunteering program with Valley Health. And so you think, oh, well, then that has nothing to do with being a park ranger. I'm not going to put that on there. But you have to think outside of the box and think about what skills you learned. So obviously, one, you learned a lot of customer service skills, which are things that you may need for being a park ranger because you're probably going to be working with people. You had to learn a lot about just navigation, learning around, navigating a hospital, navigating what you should be doing, how you should be acting, everything like that. Those can be specific skills that you could put towards a park ranger job as well. So you just have to think outside of the box really with it of what did I actually learn? Not just, oh, I was helping out with some documents, at Valley Health, but it could be so many more things that you really did learn and that helped you grow as a person professionally. And so if you feel like that could go towards it, then that's what you want to highlight when you put that volunteer experience in there. So you wouldn't want to just put, I volunteered here, because then no one would really know, okay, well, how does that help? So you definitely want to then, especially if you're in the chronological format, you want to put in that specific, it was with Valley Health, that was a volunteering, but then list the bullet points of things that you did that translate into what that job is looking for. So again, you definitely want to make sure you are looking through those job descriptions, just kind of like Kelly talked about earlier, whether it's a job you're actually applying for now or your dream job, just figuring out what those skills are so that way you know then what you should be talking about and what you should be highlighting about yourself. because if there's anything outside of what they're looking for, it's just going to be kind of like white noise to them. So definitely something to think about. Also, paid internship experience can always be used as work experience within your resume. So outside of volunteering and outside of an unpaid internship or internship for college credit, if you have paid internship experience, you should definitely put that into your work experience, whether you're doing a functional or a chronological resume, because that is a job, you are getting paid for it. And even if you still have the title of intern, it's definitely something important that should be on there. So for sure, always make sure to put that work experience in the correct section. And then outside of your resume, I just kind of wanted to talk about real quick too, when you're interviewing. So definitely feel confident to bring up your volunteer or intern experience in interviews when they ask you about your experience. So usually in an interview, you start off with a quick kind of like we talked about an elevator speech saying what you've done before and kind of where you're at now. But then they'll start to ask more specific questions, not just have you done this before, but tell me about a time when you failed and you had to remedy the situation and what was the outcome of that. That's a lot of times a question that employers will ask. And if you can't think of something fully specific within your work experience, definitely feel free to pull from it from your volunteer or intern experience. I've done that before, and honestly, a lot of times they do like when that happens because they learn more about you. They learn that you can find ways to grow in any type of situation, not just specifically your job. And I've even sometimes had people say, wow, I've never heard someone like bring up something in that way, but that was, a really fresh take on it. And so that kind of will also make you stick out in their minds as they interview, who knows, 5, 10, 15 people. So definitely feel free to bring that up at any time. So that way it is known, and that way it shows that you are trying to grow professionally outside of just your jobs, which really will elevate you outside of other candidates. I can say from my professional experience with being a recruiter, I would interview tons of people daily, and there was always the people that stuck out to me who showed on their resume and during their interviews that they were, really trying to just grow outside of what they're doing, especially if they were getting into a new career field and they didn't have any of the quote unquote professional experience needed for the job, but they would say, but I have been volunteering here, or, I've been working with someone here, I have this connection here, and they've been teaching me these things. It just shows that you are doing the work to look like you are the best candidate, but also to be the best candidate and to be the best person for that job, which ultimately is the most important part of trying to get a new job. So those would be all the biggest tips I could say to how to take that volunteer and intern experience and show it professionally to your future employer.
All right, so now we're at the part where I talk, I guess. So like I mentioned, my name's Eric Bittner. I'm currently the Planning and Zoning Administrator for the town of Middletown. I went to LCC, I think I transferred from LFCC to VCU 3 years now. Seems very, very long. So when I first started at LFCC, probably, I believe the first place I started with was actually SGA and student ambassadors volunteering wise. And the reason is actually kind of funny because you guys will notice all these different ads everywhere for different organizations and clubs, including like the bathroom doors in the bathrooms. What happened was I was there. I saw that there was an event going on over the weekends for a student leadership conference. I was like, well, I have no plans, no life apparently, so why not? So I went into the student life offices, which are in the student union building. You guys will be finding them hopefully very soon. And asked where the student life offices are. They informed me that I was in there, and I was like, oh, oops, signed up for that said conference. And then there I met with another student who's now graduated from George Mason, I believe, CJ. He got me into SGA, and it was through there that I met Kelly. And then through Kelly, I then joined the student ambassadors. And so with student ambassadors, I was with there all the way through my time at LCC. Through there, and I was able to meet a number of people, including faculty at LCC, where I was able to get a temporary job with Workforce Solutions. So I worked there for several months. And then at LCC as well, one of my professors for my business class, which any of you guys are going to take business, I recommend Charles Harbaugh for Business 100. He's the mayor of Middletown, where I work at now. I got to talking to him a little bit after classes, just because I was curious, because I'm interested in public office, and he obviously was there and had experience there. So I got talking to him, and through him, I got involved with Middletown, working with their 4th of July parade. And so I kind of did things around there. And it was through Workforce Solutions that I kind of got an idea of how to go about getting everything ready, because I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to go into planning, but I didn't quite know how, and I didn't quite know if that was absolutely the field that would be feasible, because there are degrees that and fields that you can go into, but they're going to be exceptionally difficult to get into if you don't know how. So Workforce Solutions, my work there involved helping people apply for grants. And to do that, we needed to do background into what they wanted to do and make sure that their field was tangible, that they could actually get into it. And that taught me how to do that. So I got into planning. I figured out everything that I needed to do and how to build up on that. And that was how I kind of figured out that, okay, a lot of the more technical stuff I'm going to be doing at the 4-year, wherever I chose to go to, that was later on VCU, to get my degree. So at LCC, what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus a lot on my network and personal growth. And Taylor was talking earlier about the transferable skills, those kind of things. So at LCC, I really focused a lot on doing that and getting more and more involved with the community. And then, so when it came for the time that I transferred to VCU, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I had applied into the Wilder School at VCU for planning, urban and regional studies, and I got in. So when I got down there, I took the skills that LCC, Kelly, and everyone else had already taught me of how to go out there, how to network. And I was able to, through VCU, secure internship and later a job with the General Assembly at Senator Frank Wagner's office, now retired. And then I was able to get a job at Winchester. Well, I'm sorry, a paid internship at Winchester. Until I graduated. And after I graduated in December, and then I applied for this position, which had opened the month before, and I was hired and then officially appointed in January. And a large part of that was because of I had already had a good relationship with the staff and the mayor of Middletown. So a lot of the counselors already knew me from our past work together. So LCC really did help a lot in establishing these kind of connections. And what's really interesting, this is something I think everyone should absolutely know, is these connections weren't just like, they were natural. It's not like you have to, like, they come up to you and are like, hi, I'm the mayor. It's like, no, had I never talked to him after class, I never had known he was the mayor of my business class. I had never met Kelly if I hadn't gone looking for the student life offices in the student life offices. So you kind of have to go out of your way almost to look for them, but it's not hard to. You just kind of have to look around and you will see them. But it's not like they're going to be things that immediately jump out and kind of approach you. You have to take the initiative and approach them. And so I think that's kind of my big piece of advice, is whenever you guys are there, look into what you want to do, and then also look around at the experiences. Talk to that random person in the line next to you, because they might be a student ambassador and tell you, hey, you should talk to Kelly. Talk to the running mate in the gym, because turns out they are when you're in the SGA, turns out they're in the organization that you're having trouble getting in touch with. And also do look at the organizations, because there are tons out there. I will admit it's been a while since I was actually at LOCC, but I believe that there are still a number of organizations, including one that is specifically about gaming around. And I know that 2 of them have transferred and they're now getting into the field of game development. So it's the opportunities that you guys see are boundless, and you guys just kind of have to look for them, and you will find them. Yeah. So that is basically everything I've got. So yeah.
Excuse me, that's excellent advice, Eric. I almost called you Bittner, as I used to call you back then. Thank you so much. And it really does show how those individual little connections can add up to something so big and lead you to the job that you've always wanted. I did want to ask you as well a couple questions so that other students who are listening can kind of benefit from it. Was there like a roadblock or a challenge that you hit along the way to getting this job? And if so, like, how did you overcome it?
So yes, this is actually going to sound really corny. The biggest hurdle was actually me. Because whenever I saw the job available, I was like, oh, I should apply for that. But then it said it was like they wanted a year's experience. And at first I was like, well, I don't have that. Now, for those listening, first, yes, you do. You guys, when you go into a field, your time at university counts as experience because you are learning things about that field to be in there. Also, when you have an internship for a year in the field, that does also count as experience, like Taylor mentioned. I had not realized that at the time. But so I was kind of like on the fence about whether or not I wanted to apply. And for really no reason other than I was worried I'd be rejected, which is literally the worst that could happen. So that was kind of the biggest problem. That was the same thing whenever I applied for the General Assembly and student ambassadors, was kind of the fear of, okay, I'm going to be told no, which is terrifying, but also really not that bad. It just seems way worse before it happens. But yeah, so that was actually the biggest hurdle, because it was after I applied, I found out one other person had. So.
And you're kind of comparing yourself to that other person, right? Like, oh, I can't be as good as them.
Yes, yeah.
Taylor, have you found that to be true when you're working with students in career services, that they kind of maybe underestimate their abilities?
Oh, definitely, all the time. And I always try to tell them that, you know, yes, you may not have the exact same experience as another person, but everyone's always different. And it really just comes down to how you portray yourself. And if you're confident in yourself, then that's going to give you that, you know, upper advantage. And that, you know, whatever you have to bring to the table is, you know, important, and you are worthy of hopefully getting that interview. And that you should always just stay positive about it. Because if you ever start to become negative or start to really, you know, compare yourself to that other person, it can make you, you know, not really portray yourself in that best light. And that's really what is the most important. There's honestly, as someone who's interviewed hundreds of people, there's nothing worse than someone who can't make eye contact with you, who can't really or doesn't want to give a lot of, you know, background on their experience or anything like that, or just acts like, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing. And it's okay. Half the time, no one knows what they're doing. But you should still always make sure that you are being confident about it. But yes, I run into that all the time and always have to give that little motivational speech that you are awesome. Even it sounds so lame, but it's true.
Yes. So if everyone who's here today, if you can take one thing away, it's believe in yourself. Do not underestimate yourself, and know that you have something to contribute and to go for it, right, Bittner?
Yes, always.
Always. And I kind of want to just real quick before we went to our wrap up, I wanted to go off of Eric's just experience. Obviously, Eric, you know, from the get-go, you knew what you wanted, and that's fantastic. So you just started immediately building upon that and started working towards it, which is awesome. And we have a lot of students who do know already, this is what I want to do, and they're, you know, they're working towards those goals. But we do also have a lot of students that are undecided. They don't know yet what they want to do. And if you are one of those people listening to this right now, I just want to say that obviously internships may not be the best thing because that's a little bit more job specific, but volunteering is one of the best ways to find out what you like and what you don't like. It's also a free way, because a lot of times students take classes and you have to pay for those classes to maybe find out what you like and don't like, which is great. But this is a fantastic way to find that out. In my own personal experience, I volunteered throughout high school and in college, And it really helped shape me to figure out, okay, this is what I want to do. I had done volunteering in the healthcare field, and I realized that is not what I want to do. And then within the National Honor Society, I volunteered with the blood drive, which again, healthcare wasn't very excited about, but I was the chairman for it. So I was organizing the entire event. And that's when I found out, oh, I'm really good at organizing things. I enjoy being in leadership positions. And I kind of started to build off of that. And then I continued to do the same thing to figure out other career fields, like what can I do then with this leadership experience? How do I want to be a leader? And started finding those ways. So it's just a really easy and free way to help figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life or your career. So.
I agree. And one thing that Taylor and I talked about, it's okay if you are looking at us right now thinking, I have no volunteer experience. Please don't worry about that. I unfortunately didn't take advantage of the opportunities that Taylor did when she was in high school. I had next to zero volunteer experience. I did do athletics, but that did worry me. You know, do I have enough? Is it too late? It is never too late to get started. Go ahead and just find opportunities, like Taylor said, that speak to you and find your path, knowing that, again, it's all about your path and your timing. There is no such thing as not enough or too late.
100%.
And sorry, we are.
Oh, no, you're fine, Eric. Go ahead.
But I do want to kind of tag off of Taylor, actually. It does seem like from the get-go, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. That is not the case. My first year at LCC, and Kelly can attest this, I had no idea what I was doing or what I wanted to do. I was in a complete, not necessarily tailspin, but I was like, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. No idea what field I actually wanted to be in until my second year at LCC. So
Eric wanted to do all the things.
Yeah, if you guys, that's how you guys feel. That is, I know how that feels. It is scary when you don't know what you want to do, but when you guys do, and when you know what you want to do after you find it, it is, you just got to keep your eye on that.
Great. So it looks like we're now ready for Q&A, and one has actually already popped up. Do you guys want me to read it to you all and then go from there?
Yeah, that works. Or do you want me to just stop sharing this screen? I'm fine with either.
Sure, either way is good. So this question is from a student. They said, is it important to track every community service hour I earn through volunteering? What do you think, Tay?
It is important to track every hour?
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. That's a great question. I feel like that's a hard task to do. So I would say don't pressure yourself to have every hour like, oh, I had a half hour this day and then a half hour that day. Sometimes some volunteer experience does make you track your hours. So that kind of then becomes a part of the job or the volunteer experience. So it makes it a little bit easier to do that. But I think it's okay that you don't have to have that specific amount on your resume. You can also kind of, you know, if you had 338 hours on your resume, you can say, I had about 350 hours of, you know, this experience. It is okay to kind of, you know, generalize. Those, you know, missing 22 hours aren't going to make or break anything. So, I mean, if you feel comfortable doing that and you like to stay organized in that way, that's great. But I don't think it's going to hurt you in the end if you don't put how long for that volunteer experience, or at least the hours. If it's easier for you to say, I volunteered at this place from May of 2019 to October of 2019, then that's fine in itself, because then I see that you were volunteering for this many months. Whether or not it was 10 hours a week, 1 hour a week, or 30 hours a week, either way you're gaining that experience, and either way you're volunteering there at that time or interning. So it's definitely up to you. And then too, with interning for college, they usually say you have a specific amount of time. So that also you may track too. So I think it's just really up to you and your preference, and also what you're volunteering for or interning for if you need to track hours. I hope that helps. It's kind of like a yes and no.
Cool. So I'll see if we have any other questions coming up. They said, sounds awesome.
Perfect.
And we also want to give the opportunity, if desired, we don't have to, but if any of you who are attending today, maybe you don't have any other specific questions, but you do have some ideas of what you want to go into, we'd also be happy to provide recommendations, whether it's in the Fauquier, Luray, or kind of Middletown, Frederick County area, of some organizations that might be a good fit for you. So we'll just give it a couple minutes to see if there are any additional questions, or if anyone wants to kind of propose a field that they want to go into, so we can give some advice.
Yep.
We'll just wait a couple moments because typing sometimes takes the time. Oh, cool. Okay, so this person, they need to take off soon, but we can always share this recording with them. They are in high school, great, and are planning to get their associates and then pursue law. So does anyone have any recommendations for organizations or ways to kind of prepare for law? Cough, cough, Taylor, the law advisor.
Oh, yes, of course. Okay, first off, yes. That is kind of a hard thing that people think, well, how can I even get that experience in law? Some people start to think if they're going for a professional job, they start off with the paralegal, which is a great way to start off. And we do have our paralegal studies associate degree and a legal admin certificate. So if you want to just get the certificate with your other degree and try to start becoming a paralegal while you're in college, which is something that's very possible to do. That's a good way for a professional job. If you want to volunteer, though, the same way that Kelly said, if you don't see a position open that you feel like you can actually apply for, you can still reach out to any of the law offices, which those are abundant in our area. If you go to downtown Winchester, if you're from Winchester, you'll see like 6 just walking along Old Town. There's a ton. If you can get their information or even just pop your head in, I know that's a little difficult right now. Thank you, coronavirus. But if you can get the contact info and reach out and just say how passionate you are about law and you want to learn more about it. 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to be like, awesome. We would love for someone to come in and help with the paperwork or, to help sit in and type notes for certain things because, their jobs are very busy and they're always looking for extra help. So I think it's definitely a possibility to reach out for volunteering or interning. And we do get some things that come through for paralegal or for law offices on our job site at the lfcc.edu/jobs. That is something that comes through because, again, like I said, we have a pretty heavy, the word just came out and it won't come out, but a heavy presence of law offices around our community. And I feel like that's actually pretty normal in most communities as well. But that would definitely be something I would say to do is to try to just start off as a volunteer in one of their offices.
And if I can add to that as well, I just thought of a couple things that might be more like hidden gem. Depending on the type of law that you want to go into, like let's say you want to work with children or you want to work with families, whether it's like domestic kind of issues or maybe it's divorce. Again, I don't know what the technical terms are, but let's say you want to work with the Child Safe Center of Winchester. They deal with children that basically you're just spending time with them, quality time, but you kind of get an idea of what's going on with children maybe that are in tough situations. Maybe Department of Social Services as well might be a good option. If you're interested in, for example, immigration law, I just forgot the name, but they do literacy in Winchester. One of the services that they provide for individuals that are speaking English as a second language or another language is kind of helping them prepare for that citizenship and immigration test. So even though they aren't considered law offices, you might be getting some experience with those individuals that you want to work with in the future to add on to working with those law offices. So kind of vary your experience and show some depth there.
Yeah, very true. Good point, Kelly.
No, I'm so glad that you were here for the other piece of it as well. I wouldn't have thought of contacting the law offices directly, right? Sometimes you have to be brave and just say, hey, I'm here and I'm here to help. So
yeah.
Great.
Yeah, for sure. But no, that is, yeah, also very important is the figuring out the different type of people that you may want to work with. I feel like also too, another example for stuff could be nonprofits. A lot of times if you're doing, law for an organization or a company, like they need lawyers and they have them like in-house. So if you start working with like specific nonprofits and then be like, hey, can I, work with or just, sit in and watch like your legal team and kind of get in that way too. That's a good way. Nonprofits are usually always looking for volunteers. So that's an easy way to get your foot in the door for sure.
Absolutely.
Eric, do you see a lot of like any like legal things that you work with like in your side?
So in my specific job here, no, because we have a contracted attorney, but there are other localities. I would recommend checking them out because a lot of localities do have their own legal departments, which if they don't have an internship available, they will want to talk to you and meet with you because they love people coming to the field. Also, especially government workers, we just really enjoy whenever people are interested in what we do and want to join. And that being said, actually, in the subject of internships, a lot of localities, they don't have the resources to like post all of their ads for like internships on things like Glassdoor or government jobs. So a lot of times I found like my internship with Winchester, that was never actually posted. That was an official position they had that was never advertised.
Wow.
The only reason I knew about it was because I emailed them asking them if they ever had an internship position. Here's my resume. And they're like, yeah, sure, we'll add it for next year. I was like, oh, okay then. So do email them and just kind of be like, hey, do you guys have an internships, or is this something that you guys would be open to possibly creating? But
Awesome.
Glad you mentioned that, Eric. Who would have thought, right?
yeah.
Ooh, okay, so we got a little bit more feedback from the person who asked about law. They said, sounds awesome. So appreciate all the advice, everyone who's able to contribute. They said, I'm planning to go into real estate, wills, and divorce, but things do change. I live in Strasbourg, and we have a lawyer who's pretty close to what I'm planning on doing. So I know him personally. I'm super ambitious and can't wait to get started. We are excited for you. That's awesome. You have a connection with everything. Hopefully that'll turn into even more opportunities, and we'll be here to support you 100%.
Mm-hmm. And if it is in real estate, then yeah, real estate, wills, and divorce, for sure. Then try to see, you know, any realtor office, or if you know any realtors or anything like that, get to know more about, you know, all the like what goes into real estate other than just showing houses, like the paperwork in the background and everything like that. And you can also always try to find a job as a assistant secretary, anything like that, and any of those, that would be great.
Perfect. Kind of like a holistic picture of what you can do to get involved.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
That's great. You already know a lawyer. That's awesome.
So Chris, I think we're ready to wrap up. There was a slide that you wanted to share with everyone as well, correct?
Yeah, I do want to thank the three of you for presenting today. Kelly, Taylor, Eric, thank you guys. Eric, it's great to see you and see what you're doing with your life. So I am going to put up my slide real quick for any students that are currently watching or joining us later. You can fill out this survey. It just tells us that you participated in today's session, and you get a chance to win an iPad, AirPods, or Nintendo Switch. And our winners will be announced on Monday, August 24th. That's first day of classes, just so everybody knows that, first day of fall classes. We'll announce our winners. New students get priority, so make sure that you submit these today. And then I will just end in about 2 minutes. I'll leave this up, and then we'll end the recording. But thank you guys for your time today.
Yeah, thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I want to win some AirPods.
All right, guys, I'm going to end the recording. Everybody have a great day.
You too, bye.
Bye.
Bye.